Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Welcome back to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with me, Carl Fitzpatrick. Well, Graham Healy is the country manager for Avanade Ireland, a company which was formed by Accenture and Microsoft back in 2000. Graham joins me now to discuss the world of digital transformation. Graham, you've held the role of country manager for Avanade Ireland for over 2 years now. But prior to this position, where had your career taken you?
An interesting career. I'm sure like most people in the technology industry, they've had a wide and varying career as technology has progressed through the 2000s and into the 2020. My career was originally with Accenture, and I spent the vast majority of my career with Accenture, primarily working with public sector clients across Europe, Africa, Middle East and Latin America. And that was in a traditional, IT consulting role for a while. And then as my career progressed, I spent a lot of time working with what we would call ecosystem partners. And that would be the likes of Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, HP, IBM, etc., to really build solutions for our public sector clients.
Graham, you've had the opportunity to work firsthand with public sector organisations across the globe. So how does the Irish public sector rank against those of our international counterparts?
I would say that it compares very highly, actually. In fact, if you look at a lot of the Irish public sector clients that we have, and obviously that exists in Ireland, they compare favourably in the sense that, they are very forward-thinking in how they adapt to technology and how they use technology to deliver services to the citizens. Case in point would be the revenue commissioners in Ireland. They're often one of the top-rated revenue agencies globally, and they're an agency that other revenue agencies throughout the world would look to and would discuss in terms of what they're doing to innovate. And we've seen that over the years with things like the revenue online system that a lot of people will be accustomed to. Similarly, you see the same thing in other public sector clients in Ireland and the digital services they provide.
And Graham, what did you learn from your time with Accenture that prepared you for the country manager role with Avanade?
Some things don't prepare you at all, to be quite frank. But I think, certainly, I think working for a company like Accenture, you get access to so many different types of clients, lots of different cultures, and kind of working in that mode with people from different cultures was probably one of the biggest things that set me up for the Avanade job, because within our Avanade team already we have 25 different nationalities in our Irish business alone. So having had that experience of working in all of those different countries, I was able to hopefully tune into some of those cultures and be able to interact with the team here in Avanade Ireland to make it a success so far. So that's probably one of the key things. And also, I think, look, when you work with an IT consultancy, especially a company like Accenture, you learn the value of hard work, right? And you learn the value of client delivery and client service. The reason companies like us exist is to deliver value to our clients. And you have to get up every morning and have that customer service mentality.
And in an interesting move back in 2000, Accenture and Microsoft joined forces to form Avanade. But what brought that about?
Accenture prides itself on being the largest independent technology agnostic service provider in the world. So in other words, Accenture will pick the technology that it feels is best to deliver services and solutions for its clients. Obviously, it's a company that is in high demand from technology providers so that it can build skills in those technologies. And Microsoft at the time just felt that it needed more focus, if you like, and Accenture wants obviously to maintain its independent status, so they came together and set up Avanade in order to have a dedicated IT services company that is proficient, if you like, or expert in Microsoft technologies.
So who is Avanade's typical client, and how does the company add value to the businesses it's working with?
We have clients across all of the industries that you would expect. Again, public sector is in there. You would have financial services clients, whether they would be banks or insurance companies. Moving into media and technology would be things like mobile providers, or some of the big software companies would similarly be clients. So across all sectors really is, we would play in, but really the type of services we deliver, again, are all around the Microsoft ecosystem. So that ranges from advisory services, so where a client for example, they're thinking about moving to the cloud. They're thinking about getting out of their data center because of the ongoing costs of managing that data center, the cost of, when they depreciate their assets and have to buy new assets and the capital outlay that comes into play. So everything from that advisory work of moving them into the cloud and all of the things they need to think about, right through to doing the implementation of actually supporting them on the move to the cloud, and then supporting them around the managed services. So how do they manage their environment and how do they manage their technology infrastructure while in the cloud?
And looking at your own role within the company, how did you set about gaining traction within the Irish market back in 2018?
So, the first thing we did, right, so we're lucky. We have two very strong parents, Microsoft and Accenture. And so that was the first place we started. We looked at, who were the clients that these two, huge companies work for, and what are they doing in the Microsoft ecosystem, and how can we go and have conversations with those clients in order to for them to get the best use out of their Microsoft estate. It's a conversation you can have with anybody at the C-suite around Microsoft and the technology infrastructure that they have and how are they consuming it and making best use of it. So in that sense, I felt that when we came in 2018, it was a really good time to start up the business. There's some really good Microsoft partners already in the Irish market, but we really felt that the Irish market itself was at that tipping point in terms of moving into digital transformation, whether that will be around the Microsoft Office suite and how they collaborate and how they engage both their customers and their employees, or the underlying IT operations and how to make that more efficient and be adding more value to the business rather than being a cost driver of the business.
And Graham, we've been hearing about digital transformation for years, but with the onset of COVID-19, digital transformation has been accelerated at a phenomenal pace. Is this something that Avanade has witnessed firsthand over the past 6 months?
Yeah, very much so. We've worked with many clients, both in Ireland and across the world, to help them, if you like, respond to the COVID pandemic and how they can actually keep the lights on in their business, and then not only keep the lights on in their business, but how they can look to thrive, as they come out of this pandemic in order to be sustainable, resilient businesses. Case in point, obviously in the UK, and it's a well-noted example where Avanade, Microsoft and Accenture work together to get 1.2 million NHS users live on the Microsoft Teams application so that they could collaborate, they could engage, they could work efficiently in teams, whether they be clinical teams or different types of clinical huddles, to continue to deliver effective services during that time frame. And we went live, I think it was in about 14 days, to get 1.2 million users live on that. So that's a good example of really an entity responding very, very quickly to the pandemic to actually make sure that they're, in this instance, obviously not a business, but a business is ready and is primed to actually keep going during the pandemic. And then obviously as time moves on, clients move out of that respond and that firefighting mode and into reset. So it's time to take a deep breath and say to yourself, right, what do we need to do over the next 12 to 18 months, not only with our technology, but as a business in order to be reset for the current environment, which, as we all know, is becoming hybrid, virtual, in office, face-to-face, over video, over phone, etc. So an omni-channel engagement, both with your citizens, your customers, and your employees. So responding in that situation and resetting the business, and then into renew. So what are you going to do with your business over the next 12 to 24 months to right-size your business to be set up not only technologically, but by process, by governance, by engagement, in order to really rethink how your business should deliver its products and services to its customers.
And of course, Graham, Avanade is working not just on the technology side, but it's looking at a holistic view of the business itself. Give us a flavour for the types of projects that you work on in that respect.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a really good point that you make about the kind of holistic nature of what we do. It really is underpinned by technology and obviously specifically the Microsoft technology platform. But it's really kind of saying, okay, when you take that position that Microsoft is the most relevant technology for most businesses, it's how can you enable that technology to drive value for your business. So a perfect example of that, and everybody will be aware of this, is we've all gone virtual. Everybody's working from home, and how can you get to a situation where you are working effectively and efficiently? So have you got the right collaboration technology set up? And that's not just being on the video calls and on the Microsoft Teams calls, but are you effectively set up as a team? Can you access all of the documentation and the services and tools that you need to do your job effectively? Can you do that in a way that is maintains the balance between work life and home life, even though you're in the home? So it's really thinking about all of the change enablement that needs to be done in order so that businesses can adapt in this environment, use the technologies for what they are, and actually really, really, truly adopt them. So these aren't technology projects. The technology works. It's all about the people and how you get the people to engage with the technology, to be effective in their job and to be happy in their job.
And just looking at that from a talent agility perspective, how are you actually assisting businesses to attract and to retain that talent?
We've heard this term, the war for talent, over many years, especially in the Irish market, right? The Irish market has been booming for many years. We've seen, a lot of immigration and needed immigration from countries with people that have the skills that we need in order to grow our services sector in Ireland. And one of the things in order to do that is, the attractiveness of your brand in order for them to join your company. And one of the things we would say is that the technology is one of those enablers and is one of those brand attractors, if you like. So if you are set up in a seamless way, as we are in Avanade, obviously we adopt all of the Microsoft technologies. Where we work from is somewhat irrelevant. And we have been working collaboratively in a virtual way for many, many years. And that's one of the things that attracts a lot of people coming out of university, for example. They see that we're using and adopting these technologies, we're using them efficiently, we're using them effectively, and that's something that appeals to them, versus another client that, let's say, could be in another industry and they're still using, old-fashioned technologies, let's say, and that isn't something that appeals to people today. People are used to that, let's say, iPhone and Android culture where you turn on an app, it's intuitive, you use it, it serves a purpose. And it's the same type of mentality that needs to be in the work environment. So companies, I think, that have set themselves up for success in terms of their technology adoption and using those technology tools for their workforce, I think naturally will attract talent, or will be one of the things that will help attract and retain that talent.
One of the concerns facing lots of business owners about this remote working, of course, is the disconnection from the organisation itself. So what advice have you got for business owners in that regard?
Yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is one. From my own experience, I can only kind of talk about some of the things we're doing to maintain engagement. So one of the things we do is we really have, if you like, a litmus test, a few times a year in terms of how engaged our employee population is. So we run anonymous surveys just with some really telling questions to get underneath the skin of how people are feeling, maybe about how aware they are of the changes we're making, what's their general well-being and their level of satisfaction. And as a result of what comes out of those surveys, we act, right? And that's one of the key things you have to do. Is it's great running a survey, but if you don't act upon it, then people are going to get, let's say, a jaundiced view of the next time the survey comes around. So we have those surveys, we test the engagement, and then we act accordingly, if you like. But what we're doing on kind of an ongoing basis, and I think a lot of companies would have felt this as well at the start of COVID, we were probably overly engaged with our employees because we felt, okay, we're all remote now. We need to keep up this level of interaction. And we're probably over-communicating, over-engaging, if you like. And now we're getting into a bit more of a, let's say, a nice cadence in terms of how we operate. So for us, we have things like bi-weekly all-hands calls where it's, giving people updates on things like return to office, on, how the business is faring during the COVID pandemic and so forth. We then have once monthly kind of engagement nights where it could be everything from a virtual table quiz to a virtual games night. We could have a joined up Netflix party and so forth. And then globally, actually, Avanade has a very, if you like, cool engagement model, which is we have a 24 hours a day radio station live on Microsoft Teams. So this might appeal to you here, Carl, but and basically at different slots, for half-hour slots, people from around the world come on and do their little show, and people can dial in and listen to it while they're working, and dial back out again. So I think there's a whole host of things that we're seeing companies do to adapt this. Certainly, I've even seen it now with catering companies who would previously have brought catering to offices for lunch meetings and breakfast meetings. Now they're doing virtual catering in the sense that they are bringing the breakfast and lunches out to people's houses. So while you're having your virtual all hands call, everybody is having their food while they're having the engagement. So it really is interesting and great to see, especially Irish companies adapt and innovate based on the business realities they face.
And Graham, finally, what emerging technology are you most excited about that will have the greatest impact on businesses over the next 3 years?
Yeah, look, I think there's some of them have been in and around for quite a while. Everything from, analytics and artificial intelligence to virtual and augmented reality. You could, I'm sure everybody could wax lyrical about the various pros and cons of some of those over time. But certainly what we think is if you look at the amount of data that exists in any organization, it's what organizations do or do not do with that data is affecting the results of that business, right? So I think data-driven companies and companies that have got a better handle on their data will be able to make more insightful decisions, will be able to respond to customer needs and predict customer needs over time. But on the side, I guess one of the coolest ones I've seen of late is really, if you look at technologies like the Microsoft HoloLens, and especially if you think of that in a hospital environment. So the HoloLens is augmented reality, so where you could train a clinician or a nurse in real time on how to use this new ventilator as an example, or this new device that maybe they only use once a month or very irregularly. So they really have to call upon their recall of old training in terms of using, let's say, the ventilator. Whereas with the HoloLens and the augmented reality, they can put that on at any time and go through a worked example of how to use it, and therefore they're constantly fresh. And I've seen some examples of that in use, and it's quite spectacular. So I think they're the kind of things that excite us because they have a genuine human impact.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Graham Healy from Avanade Ireland, and I would like to wish Graham continued success in his role as country manager.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast